Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are on the updates 1.93 dev server, and with that we're going to be having a look at the new ground vehicles coming to the game in 1.93. Now before we get started, because this is going to be the first video out of a few that I'm going to make on the dev server, I do want to make some things clear. First of all, everything on the dev server is subject to change. This includes stuff like battle ratings, repair costs, even armor values and things like that. So even though we're getting a general look at what's coming in 1.93, understand that some of these values that you see may change before it hits live server. Also, the fact is not all of the vehicles are on this dev server. There are no Swedish vehicles, and we know that at least 2 Swedish tech tree vehicles are coming, 1 Swedish, 1 Finnish. So make sure to look for in the future, maybe for a second dev server, which will have those. So I'm going to break these videos down like this. We're going to have a ground vehicles one, air vehicles one, naval one, helicopter one, and then the rest of the videos are going to be looking at individual vehicles. So if you want to see just a video on an individual vehicle, make sure to check that out on the channel, probably maybe a few hours after you see this video. Anyway, let's get started. As we mean to go on with, of course, the ground vehicles. The first one is the M1A2 Abrams. This is coming at 10.3. Rank 7, of course, at the top of the M1 line that we have in the game already. This is the 4th Abrams, which is being added to the game, and it is, of course, the M1A2. Having access to the 120mm M256 cannon, it also has access to some secondary armaments in the form of 2 7.62 M240s and a 12.7 just on the top as well. The main differences between this and also the M1A1 seems to be some armor differences and also some slightly different ammunition. It seems to keep the blowout racks, which is really nice to see at the back. You can see that the composition armor on the cheeks is 38mm of homogeneous armor, 800 of nearer elements, and then rolled homogeneous armor 101mm. The lower glacis sits at 32, 250, 101, and then it has a little bit of armor around the fuel tanks as well, 19mm. So they also added in this new protection analysis, which is pretty cool, and we'll test it against, let's just say, the TATU with its wonderful penning round, the 3BM42. You can see it can still just go straight through the lower glacis right here, and look at this new protection analysis. So you can see that it fires the round, and then you can watch it go in. It's as if it's like a kill cam in the game, right? So you can see it from any angle. And there you go, there's the next round going straight through the horizontal because the horizontal still has no armor. So if we look at the general rules, it's looking like against kinetic APFSDS at 500 meters, you've got 352 as a lower glacis, then you have what looks like a cheek on the right hand side of what varies from 680 to 700 millimeters. So you really ain't going through that. There is a little bit of a gap right here, which seems to be some form of just hole in the armor, which is a bit odd, but yeah, that is right around there that you can see it goes a little bit green, but 600 to 700 millimeters of armor is very tough for the cheek. On top of this as well, on this side, you're looking at about 620, 610, so that's going to stop the majority of APFSDS rounds you have in the game, but you still have this really weak turret, horizontal, ring, or the turret ring, so 64 millimeters for that should easily be able to go through and do whatever it wants. So even though the cheeks are stronger, everything else pretty much stays the same. These sides, you're looking at 525, even 922, but that's basically because you're smashing into the side of the carbon armor there. And then you've got obviously 145, and then where the ammo is, you have only 25 millimeters at the back, which will make the thing go poof. So yeah. That is the protection analysis shown. I think it's a wonderful new system that you can see here. I'm really happy to see it look like that. On top of it as well, you can see if you change back to the main screen, it does actually change it, which is nice. The other thing to also mention is this machine is powered by a transmission, which means that it can go 68 kilometers an hour forward with 8 gears and 41 kilometers an hour backwards. So even though it's a little bit more chunky at 61.7, being being powered by the Honeywell AGT 1500 gas turbine with 1519 horsepower. It is able to accelerate in both directions incredibly quickly. It keeps its 4-man crew, 3 in the turret and of course the driver in the front, and it also keeps its manual loader. The manual loader itself actually starts off at a base of 7.8, and you can get it down to 6 seconds, which is definitely viable. The other thing to mention as well is the rounds. So the rounds are a big difference. You can see it also gets thermals, which is lovely for a top-tier vehicle. Starts off with the M1A2 round, which seems like a very standard Heat FS round. Has a decent muzzle velocity of 1,140. It has 650, 563, 325 at all distances. So overall, it's pretty standard when it comes to a default heat round. The secondary round that you get is a rank 2 Heat FS round, the M1A30 A1. Now this one is slightly different. Look at the muzzle velocity, 1,410 meters per second. This is an incredibly fast Heat FS round. It does lose in the pen department though, 400, 346, 200. So you can see that it's not going to pen, a ton of stuff, but it might be very useful against stuff like helicopters in the future when it comes to in the game. The standard rank 3 modification that you can get though is the M829 round with the APF SDS, and I'm pretty sure this is the one everyone's going to use. It's pens 491, 425, 284 at 10 meters, has a muzzle velocity of 1,670 meters per second. This is the round which is going to be the one which does really well. It also has 12 smoke grenades which go out in 6 at a time, so you get 2 loads of them. It has great survivability. It has a lot going for this machine, so it's lovely to see it finally in the game. The Germans get a familiar face, the BMP-1, and it is a DDR vehicle. I believe this is the first DDR vehicle that we have for the Germans, and what that is the East German side of the equation. We've had stuff like the M48 in the past being added to the Germans, which of course is the Western side, but as the Eastern side, it's nice to see some representation. The BMP-1 though is a complete carbon copy of the other 2 BMP-1s that we have in the game. The first one being, of course, the one in Soviet hands, the BMP-1 that you see here, and then the Chinese one, which came in last update, the ZBD-86, is also a carbon copy. So this is the third, iteration of the same vehicle, just with a slightly different coat of paint, with the fact that you get the little insignia here, showing that it is a vehicle from the DDR. You also get the winter camouflage and the bicolor desert camouflage as well, just to try and top that off. It does get the BMP-1P upgrade, which is kind of surprising to me. From my general reading of this vehicle, when it comes to history, I don't think it was actually equipped with the 1P upgrade when it came to DDR service. I might be wrong about that, so I apologize if I am. It does get access to night vision, but here you go. So it has the BMP-1P upgrade. If you take that off, it has the 9M14 right here, which is of course the keyboard guided ATGM. And once you get the BMP-1P upgrade, you go up to the ATGM, which you find here, 600mm, 520, 300, and of course it is mouse guided. So overall, you also get the smoke grenades as well, which is lovely. Overall, it's exactly the same as the other 2, so if you're used to them, you'll be used to this one. The next vehicle on offer is another BMP, but of a slightly different ilk. This is the BMP-3. It has access to the 100mm to a 70 and the 30mm to a 7.2, and a coaxial, so the 7.62mm PKT machine gun. The smoke grenades also is 6, so you only get 6 instead of a complement of 12, which is generally quite nice, and it's also very chunky for what it is. You can see how large it is when it comes to its silhouette, and also the 100mm is very, very odd when it comes to uses of ammunition. So first of all, you do have 2 different ATGMs that you can have. The first ATGM is actually not open to you until you research it as a rank 1 modification. So you're going to be stuck using these HE rounds, and these HE rounds are nothing to write home about. The 3 OF32 gives you a muzzle velocity of 250 meters per second. And then the second one gives you 355 meters per second of muzzle velocity, but still is absolutely awful. That is potato level of gun. And then it's just going to be a pain using this off the bat because you're not really going to be able to pen anything. But once you get the 9M117, which I think will be your main tool of killing things, you are able to pen 600 millimeters and 520, 300, and then the M1, which actually has a tandem warhead on it, meaning that it can pretty much negate ERA when it feels like it. It pens 750, 650, 375, and that's also a rank 2 modification. Its main killer, though, is going to be the 30mm, which has access to a HVAP belt, which pens 100, 98, 41, and also has 2 different HE shells to start with a Heavy APT, and then this one just being Heavy APT as well. Then an APT belt. It has access to night vision, no thermals on this machine, but it does get access to scouting, which is lovely. Maybe that'll make the grind a little bit easier. Another thing to also mention is the fact that its reload time for its 100mm for the HE shells is 4 seconds, whereas for the ATGM, it is, as you can see at the bottom there, 12 seconds. So it's going to take you 12 seconds to reload an ATGM, where I believe you can carry 8 of them, if I remember correctly. We'll actually just check that for you, so I'm not talking out of my rear end. We'll just change this to this, and then this to this, just so we can get a general idea of the general, ammunition that you're going to take on the vehicle. And it's kind of nice seeing that the ATGM is going to have a different, reload to the HE. So you can see 8 ATGMs there, and then if you want to know how these guns work, that is the potato gun, and then also that is the secondary. I just need to make sure that I have my secondaries set up. Let's actually change that, otherwise it's going to get a bit confusing. Right, there we go. So let's just see. There you go. So the secondary is mapped to the 30mm. Unfortunately, the 30mm right now doesn't have any noise. You can see it can easily go through the front of Leopards. You can see it firing, but there's just no noise. The actual rounds coming off the vehicle, though, do you see that? Isn't that really lovely? I love seeing that. The other thing about the Spud gun, the 100mm, is it does eject shells out of the back. So, boop. That's also wonderful to see. And also with the ATGMs. So, let's just fire the Spud gun again. You can see it's just absolutely abysmal when it comes to what it's going to be useful for. The ATGMs, though, are really where this thing's going to pack a punch, because you can move it as you feel like on the move. It does also have an access to a stabilizer, which is really nice to see. It'll help it out. But the ATGM itself, so here's an M60 Rise with some ERA. So normally it would stop ATGMs. Well, not this one, because of the fact it has the tandem warhead. The first part of the, ATGM sets off, and then it has a second basic explosion, which is going to go through the vehicle and be able to negate that ERA. So, very unfortunate for it. It's the tandem warheads are going to be incredibly strong when it comes to this vehicle. So yeah, also the turret rotation is surprisingly good for a BMP, much more improved over the BMP-1 and also the BMP-2 in the game. There you go. So this should be a pretty fun vehicle. It's got decent speed behind it. I'm just worried about its silhouette and stuff like that, but we'll get into more of that talk in the next video when we look at it specifically. The Vickers Mark 7 is another vehicle which is coming to the game. This is going to be at rank 6, bass rating 9.7, so pretty high on the Richter scale when it comes to the British. This is of course the prototype vehicle that was eventually designed for export, and you can see the general armor values that it has. So its upper glacis is 35, 520, 45, and then 40, 280, 45. It is a Leopard chassis, so it should be very similar values to that. Then you have the composite armor on the turret, 35, 600, 20. So nothing really to write home about, and the breach itself is absolutely diabolical. 35, 220. So it should be really easy to shoot through this thing, if we're quite honest. Like, if we go to the protection analysis, we have a look at... let's just go China and then use ZTZ just to, show its APFS DS. So the upper glacis is looking like around about 300, and so that's going to be easy. The turret is looking like 300 as well, so it's going to be easy to go through that. It seems to have like a break point where the two armor areas match up, so that is something to think about with 860. But this is not going to be what we would class as an armored vehicle. Now, this is going to be one which is just going to get eaten by pretty much anything that it finds. Even if you can't penetrate it, it still has that wonderful turret ring of around about 80 millimeters. And of course, it has all of the rounds in the back here, which just kind of there. Or at least it is two-stage ammo, so of course that is something that is alright. It has a 4-man crew, as you can see, and the armor is just, the armor might as well not exist. It's at least against top-tier APFS DS. It has access to the 120mm L11A5. This is a gun that you should be used to on the Challengers. Also, on top of this, it is in the other line of vehicles, so it's actually after the Warrior. I don't know why it's linked with the Warrior, probably trying to force people to, research the Warrior before getting it, but it is in that line, so you don't have to go through the Challengers to be able to research this, which is really nice. I do like that. Has access to 10 smoke grenades and also 10 degrees worth of gun depression. The rounds that you get are the L23, the L23A1, and also the L31A7, the Hesh round. Night vision is not here, apart from thermals. The Vickers Mark 7 gets thermals over normal night vision, so that's very nice. That's absolutely wonderful to see for its usability facts. The fact that it has some, really good, it has pretty good optics. It's decent optics, you can see here. But the fact that it has thermals just gives it that nice little extra kick, which a lot of top-tier vehicles are going to need, especially since night battles are getting more and more, hectic. Another thing to also say is the loading screens do move, if you saw that there, which is really, really nice. The engine is 2,500 horsepower. It's a big old engine with 54.6 tons, so this is your first pretty nippy top-tier British vehicle, which is great. Also, the turret rotation speed needs to go into realistic. There you go, 1,500 horsepower in engine for the, for realistic, and also 26.3 degrees per second is great. The reload rate as well on this machine is, let's see, 7.8 base and 6 seconds. So this has basically the same reload as the M1A2. The Centurion Action X is the new rank 4 battle rating 6.7 premium that is coming into the game for the British. It's a weird hybrid of basically a Centurion and the FV4202. Has access to 12 smokes, the 84mm or the 20-pounder, and of course a Besser machine gun. It wouldn't be one of these, British vehicles without the Besser. 10 degrees worth of gun depression, very good reload on its gun, which is something to watch out for the tier that it's at. It has access to a top of 6.3 seconds, and also the gun itself is stabilized. It's a 2-plane stabilizer, so exactly the same as stuff like the Cent Mark 10 that you'll be used to, and of course the 4-man crew. Armor values on this machine are a bit all over the place. You have 198mm and 120 around the breech. Then you've got 98 and 76 in these cheeks, but they are heavily curved. The upper glacis being 76.2, and the lower glacis being 76.2 as well. So it probably won't actually be that hard to crack as a 6.7. Most guns should actually go through this, so it's going to have to rely on its stabilizer a lot more than other machines. It does get access to the standard rounds of the 20-pounder, the Shot Mark 1 and the Shot Mark 3, so you have very good penetration or very good damage depending on what you want to, and artillery support as well. So it's lovely to see this machine. It's a good mixture between two general ideas. Japan gets nothing, at least for now, and the Chinese get access to the ZTZ-96. Now, this isn't its normal camo. I really like this camo, so I just wanted to show it off. But this is the standard camo that you get for the machine. And the ZTZ-96 is kind of like a Chinese knockoff T-72 in a way. It's got the 125mm fully stabilized, and also it is auto-loaded. So you actually go down to 3 crew members on this machine, which is different to the other machines that we have for the Chinese. You have an upper glacis, which is worth 60, a 105, 50 of Texelite, and then you have these turret cheeks, which are 140 to 75, 115, 280 to 200. So being a 9.7 vehicle, the armor on it is actually not that tough. So we'll compare it to, once again, the new vehicle from Britain. We'll have a look at the Vickers Mark 7 and its L23A1 round. So its lower glacis is 95mm. So really bad, really bad. The top of it, when we look at this upper glacis though, very strong. You can see this is 800 to 1200mm. Like, you're not going through this, or at least right now you're not. The turret cheeks are at 727. So you can see that the turret cheeks themselves, very strong. The problem is, of course, the breach. You're looking at 216 to about 150. So going through that is going to be very easy to do. And also the turret ring is only about 140 to about 200. And that's not even really the turret ring, that's just the top of the upper glacis. So yeah, the kill shot, my guess is like right here, basically. If you can thread the needle and hit both of these crew members, whatever happens, it seems when you pen, the engine gets hit. Because of these crazy exhausts, the exhausts are part of the engine that you can see here, and once they're hit, even if they're hit on the side here, it counts as the engine being hit, which in my opinion is a bit of a problem. But the thing is, it is really nice to see this, just because it is the new top tier Chinese MBT that we have, and the armor, at least on the cheeks, is strong, the upper glacis is strong, but it does have weaknesses. 6 degrees worth of gun depression, and also it has a stock reload of 7.5 seconds and a spaded reload of 7.5 seconds, because, as we said, it's an autoloader. 730 horsepower in the back engine right here, and it can only go 7.2 kilometers an hour backwards, which is a problem. It does also have the carousel, so if you just shoot it in the side, it will go pop, and that is definitely a problem for it. It has also access to 12 smoke grenades, a 12.7 and a 7.62. The next one is Italy, and unfortunately Italy doesn't get any ground vehicles, but France with the 2 big additions. The first one being the AMX-30 ACRA. Now this is a standard tech tree vehicle, which is a prototype version of the AMX-30. This is not the standard camouflage, this one is. So the AMX-30 ACRA is an AMX-30 B2 chassis, which has a turret on it, which mounts the 142mm ACRA gun launcher. Now what this gun does is it fires ATGMs. It fires the MP ACRA and also the MUC. Now I'm not sure if the MUC is a HE shell, I'm pretty sure it's an ATGM, and I'll show you why when we just get into a test drive in a second. But you can see it has access to a rangefinder, it's sat at 8.3, no gun stabilizer, it is 142mm. You do lose the 20mm coaxial though in favor of a 7.62, and of course you have, is it the 7.62 actually? Sorry, the 12.7mm coaxial, and then you got the 7.62 on the top. The engine is a 700 horsepower beast, which gives it very good reverse stats and also max speed forward stats, 65 to 23.2, and the 4-man crew as standard. Look at this optics, by the way. Isn't this beautifully modeled? This right here, optics of 6.8 to 8. It just looks beautiful. Like, whoever made that, just want to say, wonderful job. Then, of course, you have the other optics on the top, which is more of the rangefinder optics, trying to work out how to get this gun on target. One of the problems with this machine though, no access to night vision, no access to thermals, so that might be a problem going forward. So I'm going to show you the general ammunition on this thing, and you can make up your own mind on it, but it just seems a little bit odd to me. So the first things first, we have the ATGM, right, which is a big ATGM, does a lot of damage, so it's going to do a ton. Then of course you've got the secondaries as we load the second gun. You have access to 4 smoke grenades, which just fire forward. They burst incredibly quickly, but that is standard now for most top-tier vehicles. So you can see that the turret itself is incredibly chunky. So this is the HE shell, right? So the HE shell seems to have propulsion behind it, which is similar to an ATGM, but you can't control it. So I wasn't able to move that thing as it pushed up. So let's range find this. It's 400, so we're going to have to go like here. And for some reason, that's just wrong. There's something which is wrong about this HE shell, or maybe just the description of it is wrong, which could be a problem. So once again, ranging 400 on this, right? So 400, let's set up for 400, and it just goes into oblivion because it has this propulsion behind it. So I don't know whether this is like a rocket-assisted HE shell, which it could be, but that just seems crazy, and also awesome at the same time that we have this, new stuff. But it would be nice to be able to control it afterwards, if that was able. Oh, also, another thing to note, look at the top. So they actually added the compass in third-person view. I really like this addition. You see how the compass is at the top? So if a lot of the times when I'm playing with people like Tazzy and Rex, what they will say is target at 160. So I can turn to 160 now in third person instead of having to go into this view or this view. They've now made it every view. Absolutely wonderful. Great addition to the game. And then there we go. Oh my days, how did I miss? That's another nice little quality of life change that we've seen in the game in this update, just like the protection analysis. So I'm happy to see that. So let's fire once again. There we go. Then you can see it's just a general HE hit. Doesn't really do a lot. So I feel like you're going to use the ATGM over whatever the hell this round is. But it is at least still an interesting round. The MUC round. 550 meters per second. Whereas the ATGM has 800 millimeters of pen. 693 and 400 overall. With 500 meters per second of general trajectory. So overall, a very interesting vehicle, and the fact that it's not premium I think is really nice. It actually comes in a weird place in the tech tree though. It comes after the AMX 10RC of all things, so that is something to watch out for. And the last vehicle is the AMD 35. It is an armored car with access to the 25mm SA34 L72. One thing to note is when some of these machines were taken out of the game, such as, I believe, either the H35 or the FCM36 were taken out of the game. You basically lost. Well, they weren't taken out, but, you didn't have to research them in order to, play them. You unlock them if you reach rank 2 France. But when they got taken out, the reserve area for France was obviously weakened because you have 2 less vehicles. So they're adding in the AMD 35, which attaches to the AMC 35, and what you find from it is that it has access to this 25mm, which is definitely a very much odd one. It's the same 25mm you find on the AMR 35ZT3, but it does have slightly different penetration on it, leading to the fact that it might be technically different, but it looks very similar. So it has access to only one shell, the MLE 1934 TPCHF. It's an APC shell, and it pens 63, 51, 22. This thing also has a great reload on it. It has access to a gun which can fire at top of... That's not right. So I'm looking at the wrong vehicle. There we go. It can get up to, down to a 3-second reload with a base of 3.9. So very fast-firing little 25mm, 48 rounds of ammunition. And the main thing is, it's somehow got 4 crew. So it's got one dude in the back. I'm guessing it's one of these machines where you can drive it as fast forward as you can backwards. Yes, you can. So its max speed forwards is 72 kilometers an hour. Max speed backwards is 72 kilometers an hour. So you've technically got 2 drivers, even though this guy's labeled as the commander. It's got a little bit of rolled homogeneous armor around him as well. Look at that, 7mm. Then you got 2 guys in the turret. So it might actually be a little bit harder to kill this thing than you may think, just because of the 4-man crew. Then if you have a look at its armor is very weak, 20mm and then 26mm on the top. This thing is not going to be, something that stops a lot of rounds, but it is going to be a little bit of fun. It's just a little diddy armored car at rank 1, which you'll start, your French tech tree with. Of course, being a rank 1, it means that it doesn't get access to scouting, which kind of sucks, but overall, do you really need it? Just a rank 1, enjoy yourself and run around like a crazy person. Has also a coaxial 7.5mm, also very awesome. So those are the vehicles which are coming, at least from the first update 1.93 dev server. I am overall incredibly interested in some of them, such as the BMP3, I think is going to be my pick for the ground vehicles, and also the Centurion Action X, just because it's a great conglomeration of ideas. I hope you all have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.